Hi, my name is Malia and I am representing the ACLU of Oklahoma. You may ask, what does the ACLU stand for? It stands for American Civil Liberties Union. It was formed in 1920. Their stated mission is to defend and preserve the individual rights and liberties guaranteed to all people in the country by the Constitution and laws of the United States. So, the ACLU was formed in 1920, but who founded it and how did it become as big as it is today? The ACLU was formed during the first Red Scare that followed World War I and Russia's Communist Revolution. The founders were Woodrow Wilson and Attorney General Alexander Mitchell Palmer. In 1917, what today is known as the ACLU was the National Civil Liberties Bureau, formed in 1917 to provide legal aid for conscientious objectors of World War I and those being prosecuted for espionage and sedation. In 1920, under the leadership of Roger Nash, an American lawyer, the NCLB dissolved and was reorganized, forming today's ACLU. Today, the ACLU is the largest public interest law firm. It is not affiliated nor funded by any political parties. It's a nonprofit organization. Being a nonprofit organization, how is this organization funded? Volunteers, grants, donations, and annual fees pay for the organization with its 1.6 million members.
Hello, this is Korea Kersey speaking, and I'm going to be informing you about two recent cases that the ACLU has defended. The first case I'm going to talk to you about is Parents for Privacy versus the Dallas School District. This case was focused on LGBTQ. On February 20, 2018, the ACLU and Basic Right Origin defended the case on protecting transgender student rights. The Basic Right Origin seeks to defend the Dallas School District of permitting a transgender boy from using the same restrooms and locker rooms as other boys. On July 24, 2018, District Court issued an opinion granting that the school district and the Basic Right Origin dismissed the case. The court found that permitting transgender students from using the same faculties as other students would lead to illegal discrimination. The next case I'm going to talk to you about is Pilter versus Charter School. This case was focused on women's rights in education. In Brunswick County, North Carolina, the school district's dress code for girls is that they are required to wear skirts only and that they are prohibited from wearing shorts and pants. 3 of the female students who were in kindergarten, 4th, and 8th grade argued that wearing the skirts caused them to be extremely cold, it was uncomfortable while sitting in desks, and that they couldn't move freely during recess time. The ACLU and the U.S. District Court for Eastern District for North Carolina argued that their dress code was based on unlawful gender stereotypes and constitute prohibit sex discrimination under the 14th Amendment. Because of this, the court blocks the charter school and its operator from enforcing its law from girls not being able to wear pants or shorts.
In 1925, the ACLU defended John Scopes, a Tennessee high school teacher who was criminally charged for teaching about evolution in the famous Scopes monkey trial. During World War II, they fought against the internment of Japanese Americans through 2 cases, Hirabayashi v. United States in 1943 and Korematsu v. United States in 1944. They also worked with the NAACP to end legalized school segregation in 1954's Brown v. Board of Education. In 1966, the ACLU argued Miranda v. Arizona, which gave us the Miranda laws, requiring police to read the accused their rights when arrested. In 2015, their work on Obergefell v. Hodges helped repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, which led to same-sex marriage becoming legal in all 50 states.
One of the issues that the ACLU deals with is winning the disability rights battle. They want to get them full access to education, homes, psychiatric hospitals, jails, and prisons. Only 12% of the students in public schools have mental disabilities. 75% of the students that they use restraints on are those kids with mental disabilities. The discrimination against the disabled continues through to our local jails, with 60% of the people locked up having mental disabilities. The ACLU believes that the disabled deserve full access to education, homes, healthcare, jobs, and families. 48% of the people with disabilities have a personal income of $15,000 or less, which is not nearly enough to support a family.
The American Civil Liberties Union fights for many rights for many people of this country. The targeted group of those people are the minorities, mainly the black people. They help these people receive justice in courtrooms that have been set up for them not to succeed, for them to fail. They help them by giving them the most possible amount of resources available to them to help these minorities gain the minorities of this country face a lot of issues because the government is not set up for them to succeed at all, such as the school-to-prison pipeline that affects people of today, mainly the students of today, the young and the youth. The school-to-prison pipeline is set up to isolate kids by their behavior or any other category that you can list them under, instead of helping these students become better people and lead our country eventually. By isolating them, these students don't receive the education that they should receive and they have the right to receive. They challenge the juvenile and public school systems by making these systems in schools and prisons help these young students become better people. Another right the ACLU has fought for is the right to interracial marriage. The key example of interracial marriage for this country would be the most famous case is the Loving versus Virginia court case in the 1960s. This case helped push the movement for not just couples marriage, but all colored people's rights. Gave them the chance to have the rights that they would not have had. In 2010, the ACLU pushed Congress to pass the Fair Sentencing Act, which helped distinguish the racial separation in courtrooms by balancing the sentencing of individuals in drug charges. Could be weed or cocaine, crack, or anything like that. This act proceeded to help over 12,000 people, 85% of those people being black or colored or of African descent. The act gave these people federal judges to do second reviews to possibly get their sentences reduced. The American Civil Liberties Union has helped a number of people since they have been created, and they are one of the most productive interest groups today.
One of the issues that American Civil Liberties Union had to deal with is Trump's attack on immigrant children. Recently, 2 federal agencies announced new regulations concerning the detention of immigrant children. They are indefinitely going for keeping children and families locked up or even worse, split apart. The proposed regulations have a clear goal, which is terminate a long-standing federal consent decree known as the Flores Settlement Agreement, which sets nationwide standards concerning the treatment of minors in immigration custody. The 1997 agreement arose out of litigation challenging the government's practice of detaining children for lengthy periods of time. Inhumane conditions. The American Academy of Pediatrics and numerous child welfare experts have warned that jailing children and parents can severely damage their physical and mental health, often irreversibly. For decades, Flores has stood as a critical check, and Flores did not require the administration to tear children from their parents, as the federal judge overseeing the agreement has already ruled. Family separation is part and parcel of the Trump administration's efforts to deter asylum seekers and coming to the United States, and is in seizing attacks on immigrant children. And the ACLU is gearing up to lodge our objections to these regulations and to resist the government's efforts to expand its ability to detain kids. Despite international condemnation, public outrage, and a rebuke from the federal courts over its family separation policy, the Trump administration continues to double down on its efforts to attack these immigrant children.
Many of you know TASH, which is a very great advocacy organization. They have done a film to explain from the student's perspective what restraint and seclusion is like. And I've done just a few snippets here. If you want to watch the full video, and I would encourage you to, it's on stophurtingkids.com. Pretty easy to remember.
I crawled out of there. She came back and screamed at me. If you don't stay in there, I'm going to strap you in that chair and lock the door.
One sat on my leg, one sat on my other leg. Two people sat on my hands. One person sat on top of me and told me, you don't do this, you don't do that. You must listen to us, do what we say.
He slammed me up against the wall, arm barred me across the throat and lifted up so I couldn't breathe, and then whispered, how am I supposed to talk to you nice and slow so you can understand?
One particular day, we went to see my son, and we were going to give him a haircut. So we took off his shirt, and he was covered with bruises and abrasions, 15 to 20 on his body, everywhere.
Yet rest ignored me as I'm locked away in hidden rooms that pointed loudly, I'm worthless. I wanted to tell the agony, but I could not.
At my old school, from 2nd to 7th grade, I was like an awesome student. I had great grades. I had perfect attendance awards from 2nd grade to 7th grade for every 9 weeks. I mean, I excelled in history because that is part of my Asperger's syndrome. I have a photographic memory. That's also a reason why I can't forget what happened to me in school. When I was 13, my family moved 7 miles away to a new school district. I was being placed in ISS almost every school day. I spent 35 consecutive days in a what used to be a storage room under the weight room in the basement of my school. It was concrete, and there's 2 metal doors that were padlocked from the outside. There was no windows and no heat. And the only person who had a key to that padlock was the principal. You could scream in there, no one would hear you. Most students did not even know I was present at school that day. They'd see me at the end of the day getting on the bus, and they'd be like, where was you all day? In the basement. I remember I was in study skills one time, and I heard my friend in there, and he wasn't allowed out, and he was saying, I need to use the bathroom, I need to use the bathroom. And he defecated and urinated on himself, and he never came back to school after that.